Is Jeremy with us too?
Yeah, she does.
Okay. Five o'clock having arrived, we'll go ahead and officially call the meeting to order. Is the meeting been properly posted and open taken? Thank you. Item number 2, our approval of the minutes. 2.1, our minutes from the March 4th, 2024 planning commission.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item 3, our communications. I don't believe we have any communications this evening, so we'll move on to item number 4, which is a public hearing to review and possible recommendation regarding Fernando Sanchez Martinez. 4.1 is a public hearing on a request to consider a conditional use permit at 305 South 7th Street, tax parcel XP 1699A and XP 172, allowing for an in-vehicle sales or service land use with the business local BL zoning district applicant Fernando Sanchez Martinez. With that, I will go ahead and open the public hearing at this time and ask staff to get us started.
Do we have a mic today or should I
Well,
just project?
I think
You can project right into the owl there. It picks
Okay.
up sound very well.
But I'll go with yours because I feel a little crowded.
All right. Well, good evening. Before us, we have a limited conditional use permit for an auto service center. As it states in the staff memo, a limited conditional use permit runs with the property owner and not with the land. And so when there's a change of ownership, which is the situation we have today, the conditional use permit needs to be renewed. The applicant is not proposing any changes to the site. As it currently stands, it is a legal non-conforming site because it doesn't meet certain requirements of the underlying zoning district. We wouldn't require them to come in compliance with the zoning ordinance unless they were going to enlarge or expand their use. Since they're not doing that, they can continue as is. Staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit with a few conditions. Namely, that the parking lot should be repaved. Staff notes that there's some pretty broken up pavement with pretty substantial issues. And so in order to be in compliance with our property maintenance code, that parking lot should be repaved. We also note that storage of inoperative vehicles or junk vehicles is prohibited, as it is prohibited throughout the zoning district. We want to ensure that vehicles are not parked in driving aisles or driveways. And the next main condition is that an exterior trash enclosure closure must be provided, as we require all commercial properties in the city.
All right, any question from commission members for staff? Not. Anyone else?
I see someone.
Oh, sorry, Kevin, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. I just had one related to the requirements. Can somebody clarify for me whether automobiles for sale can be parked on this lot presently?
Offhand, I'm not sure. I believe so, but we would have to check.
Because, we normally provide that when we're saying like outdoor display, right? For sale or something like this, and this is in-vehicle sales and service.
Mhm.
And so one of the issues, I think in that corridor is that across time, there've been a number, not just of salvage vehicles and stuff like that, but also vehicles parked for sale, which I would like to have clarified, because to me, that's not an in-vehicle sales and service land use. That's an outdoor display land use, and I just would like to clarify that and potentially include it as one of the conditions.
So you're saying you wouldn't want to see sales of vehicles, and that would be a condition of approval?
That's my position, because I think we have other, I mean, I know we've gone through other similar reused service stations or reused car service areas where folks have wanted to convert them to outdoor display sales, or whatever the name of it, technical name of it is. And we've required different lighting activity, we've required different curbing, we've required different flow and stuff like that. And given how tight this location is, I don't think it's appropriate for it to be used for outdoor auto sales.
Thanks, Kevin. I actually would concur with that. That's my personal thought as well, and the concern question that I had as well. I don't know if we haven't gotten to others that are in attendance that maybe want to speak yet on this, and so I don't know if there's anyone that would speak on that, but I think, you know, obviously it comes down to the enforcement of our own staff and our own conditions, whether it was this business or the previous one. But I think at times, it's been a problem to be seeing a lot of unsightly, and what I would call unsightly vehicles there. I think at different times, you know, staff has reached out and to, you know, get it cleaned up, then it cleans up for a little bit, and then we have the same problem, maybe not as bad as it has been historically, but that's one of the concerns that I have, and I too know that we've dealt with this in a different way with the in sales. We did it on Racine Street. I think that's probably what you're referring to, maybe, Kevin. That was the most recent one with the used sales along Highway 11 and Racine, and so I don't foresee that this is a location that we're selling used vehicles out. It's strictly repair. And at the same time, making sure that it's sightly and not unsightly and that sort of thing. So that's just so I'm glad you raised the issue, Kevin, but I concur with that as well. Any other questions or thoughts from the commission? Yeah, well.
Is the petitioner here?
Yes.
Yeah, we haven't quite gotten that far yet, but I figured you were in attendance, and that's always an important thing, so thank you.
Would the petitioner like to speak to the issue of in vehicle sales or outdoor display?
It would only be in the repair shop, no selling vehicles whatsoever, just an auto repair shop. We have one in Brackington in business right now, so we would just like to expand up, going into Delavan too.
So it is not the petitioner's intention to have vehicles outdoors?
Not at all, it would just be
Thank you.
repair.
Thank you for clarifying. Any other questions?
I'll just note that that was consistent with their application as well. They didn't indicate that they were going to be selling vehicles.
Okay. Any other questions from commission members?
So there's a provision in here for outdoor storage of wrecked vehicles or vehicle parts is prohibited. What's the time frame? As in a month, 2 months? Because there are vehicles that are going to be repaired. I see that as something that doesn't fit very well with the business model, if it's not allowed. And there might be a storage issue while they're waiting for parts or other things like that, so I'm curious to know how that factors in.
I don't know, staff has been using a specific time window. Usually if we're seeing it there for several months at a time, it's pretty clear that that's a junk vehicle. But we don't have dates in our code.
Okay, so we're handling it on a case-by-case basis. I like that there's the flexibility for the business owner, but I worry that sometimes that gets taken advantage of.
One other, is this, also going to be a limited conditional use?
Yes.
At this time, I guess I would invite the petitioner to share any other thoughts. I appreciate you addressing the used car sales things, but maybe at this time you wanna share any thoughts that you may have, other ideas that. And maybe we just ask you to come up here, because we're recording it, so it'd be a little easier.
So I'm Donna Sanchez. I do all the paperwork and head of my dad's business. The business is out of state mufflers, and we usually take about 3 days to a week to clear out the cars. It's fast, you know. We try to move as fast as we can when it comes to repairing the cars that we have in business and whatnot. Usually, it's no longer than a week, then we just get them, our timeline is to get it done out. And as long as the customer is, you know, satisfied and we don't have any more damages or anybody coming back through, that's our job being done. But no longer than a week, I say, it being there. So, yeah.
Any questions for the petitioner?
Yes, I have one. Since
Can
I'm
we
the
just
neighbor
get,
next door.
if we could just get your name and.
Oh, sure. Okay. So
And
my
address.
name is Andres Sanchez and I'm the neighbor. I'm the guy that owns Delavan Auto Body next door to the one you were applying for. We trying to, what I was explaining to the persons here is, we're trying to keep the area clean and presentable for Delavan. And lately, in the last 5-6 years, it's not happening. We've been having a lot of issues with customers. They go and reach and knock at my door because the place right now looks bad. It's not, I don't think it's safe to walk around there. And what we're trying to do is create a better environment for our customers. So if you are willing to do that, I think in my end, you're very welcome.
For sure.
But that's one of the things that is me as a neighbor, trying to push whoever is gonna be next door to keep it clean,
Yeah,
keep
for
it
sure.
presentable.
We're also looking at paving the parking lot, and we took a brief look at it, and it's there's a lot of holes and doesn't really look presentable, so we're trying to fix that, make it, put up a sign for it to look nice, also not have.
If there's anything that we can do to help,
For sure.
just so there's no, this is Yasmin, she's the manager of my business. And again, you know, if there's anything that we can do to improve the area,
Yeah.
be more than happy to help.
For sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if there's any other questions from commissioners, but if not, I would open up to any other citizens who are in attendance who wish to speak. on this issue at this time? Are there any other citizens in attendance who wish to speak, either in favor or against? Any other final questions then for the petitioner from commission members? If not, I would close the public hearing then at this time and move on to item number 4.2, which is consider a limited conditional use permit at 305 South 7th Street, tax parcel XP 6169A and XP 172, allowing for an in-vehicle sales or services land use within the business local BL zoning district. Again, applicant Fernando Sanchez Martinez. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the conditional use findings as listed under the recommended conditional use findings. And two, the conditional use request for an in-vehicle sales and service land use at 305 South 7th Street, located in the business local BL zoning district, subject to the conditions of approval as listed under recommended conditions of approval. The applicant Fernando Sanchez Martinez.
There's a motion. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Kevin?
So, I'd just like, clarification on, from Jackie. Jackie, do you, not you, Jackie, the other Jackie, that, whether or not this conditional use, as it's presently stated, permits, used vehicle sales on the spot or not?
Whether the zoning district does? Sorry.
Whether
Whether-
the zoning district and a limited conditional use, as we've outlined.
So the applicant did not request vehicle sales as a use as part of this CUP, so we are not approving that this evening, regardless of
Okay.
whether it's allowed in the district.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Any other discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Thanks for speaking on that. We'll move on to item number 5 then, which is a public hearing to review and possible recommendation as it relates to Brian Pollard. 5.1 is a public hearing on a request for condition a planned infill development amendment to the official zoning map on the step 3, general development plan GDP for a portion of the Harbor Club at Lake Lawn subdivision at 2800 East Geneva Street, lots 28 through 47, and outlet lots 5, 6, and 7 to amend the eastern portion of the platted area in manufacturing light ML zoning district with a shoreline protection overlay. Again, applicant Brian Pollard. So with that, we'll go ahead and officially open the public hearing and start with our staff.
Great. So I'll provide a brief overview of the staff report and then happy to answer any other questions as they arise. So this is for the Harbor Club plan development. They're requesting a GDP amendment for a portion of the property, specifically for lot 2. Previously, in 2020, the city approved 40 twin home units, which is like a duplex side-by-side format. The applicant's citing market conditions would prefer to do 23 single-family homes instead. And so because that is a change in land use, we have to go back to the GDP level and amend the general development plan. The proposed arrangement of the homes is 2 curved streets with single-family homes alongside it. Like their previous developments, each home is on a small lot that's roughly the same size or just bigger than the buildable area. And then the remainder, the land between the homes is common area. So that's the same as they've done it in the previous phases. We received a conceptual landscaping plan showing turf and prairie plantings throughout the site. This staff feels that that is fine. Their objective is to preserve lake views, so they've kind of stayed away from tall trees that would block the lake, moving those more towards the north side of the site. Staff notes that there's some planting shown in the Highway 50 right away that would need to be removed from the landscape plan. At one point of clarification is that this GDP amendment is only for lot 2. And so there are other components in the application that are on lot 1 and lot 3 related to the boat launch parking lot and other things related to the marina. So at this time, we're not approving those. Those would need to come in with Lake Lawns as a co-applicant because those are Lake Lawn owned parcels. There are a few different issues with grading along the lake shore, and staff is still waiting to hear from the DNR about what they'll approve along the lakefront. And so to my knowledge, that has not yet been determined. So any of the improvements on lot 1 along the lakefront are not being approved this evening. There's a few other steps to take, and that Lake Lawn needs to come in as a separate application to approve those changes on the property on lot 1. What else do we have? Many of the plan development flexibilities are similar to what were approved in the previous approval, or are similar to those that were approved for phase 1 of the project. So in some, staff is recommending approval of the GDP amendment, but you'll see in the staff report, there's a number of conditions. Many of those conditions are carried forward from the previous approval. So I don't want you to read that as an indication that we see a lot of issues with what they're proposing on lot 2. It's rather we're memorializing conditions of approval that we applied to this 4 years ago and just wanted to carry those forward for the record. But I did want to run through some of the key conditions of approval and bring those to your attention. So number 1 is again clarifying that this amendment only affects lot 2 of the planned infill development. Condition number 2 is the requirement that we have in writing approval by the Department of Natural Resources for the grading and other utilities that would occur along lot 1 along the lakefront. Number 3 is that we need written approval by Lake Lawn for the fact that there's actually very limited, almost 0-foot setbacks between some proposed homes on lot 2 and the lot 2 property line where it abuts lot 1. So we want to make sure that that neighboring property owner, even though they do work together on many things, we want to make sure they understand that those houses will be very close to the property line and that they're comfortable with that. Number 4, just confirming that anything not shown on lot 2 is not being approved through this amendment. Condition number 5 is related to removing plantings from the Highway 50 right-of-way. And then the remainder of the conditions, I can go through them if you like, but basically they're carrying forward conditions of approval that we had in the last approval process.
Well,
Jackie or staff, whoever wants to step up for it. I understand that there's an issue about the setbacks from the lake. That's a DNR issue, I assume.
Do you want to take the first round at that?
I don't know if it's necessarily a DNR issue, it's the primary environmental corridor, and that's how we're calculating the percentage. Because that area, if you look in your packet, the percentage is shown, does not identify the area that's between the lot line of lot 2 and the shoreline. So the question is the calculation on the primary environmental corridor impact?
That is, the question is who speaks to that question?
And we've been trying to coordinate with, I know Aaron's here with their engineers, but we've also been trying to set up a meeting with the DNR. That's been, with the holidays, that's been an issue the last week and a half.
If the DNR or whomever determines that that's not allowable, not desirable, anything that we're doing here tonight that we need to walk back or?
Well, this is all provided that the DNR approves it. So I would imagine that they have to have and we need that in writing, that's part of the provisions that are in here.
So the answer to the question is we would need to walk some things back.
Very possibly, since there are utilities running through the lakefront, lakeshore area. And so they might need to look at a different routing for those if those were not approved by the,
Kevin?
Yeah, I want to tag team with Will here on the lakeshore setback, and I just want to clarify something. If this were being managed within the town of Delavan or outside of the town of Delavan, lakeside in any place that has county zoning, because the town of Delavan uses county zoning, the shoreland zoning regulation requires a 75-foot setback as opposed to the 50-foot setback. And upon what basis is staff comfortable that the 50-foot setback from the shoreland makes sense versus what other municipalities and the county in this environment would be requiring?
my understanding is that the 50-foot setback was agreed to with sewer pack in 2020. And so that's the framework that we're working under now.
We approve with that, with sewer pack then.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
And where is it that sewer pack agreed to it? Do we have documentation of that?
We do have a letter, yes.
But that, the zoning, the shoreland zoning code of Walworth County doesn't reference primary environmental corridor. It just sets the zoning requirement for within 75 feet of ordinary high water mark shoreline is defined as the shore yard. And the following things cannot be are prohibited in that shore yard: homes, porches, decks, storage buildings, patios, retaining walls, fire pits, parking areas, roads, burns, walkways, are not necessary to access the shore. And my question is, under what perspective, we don't have to have an authority because this is inside the city, so we can do it. I'm asking, under what perspective do we think it makes sense to have a 50-foot setback as opposed to all of our fellow municipalities and the county who manage similar stuff like this?
I guess I'll just say again that we already agreed to the 50-foot setback in 2020, and the GDP that they currently have allows for residential in the same locations. And so I wasn't looking to undermine any, we'd already approved it, so I wasn't looking to undo that approval.
So the basis, so if I'm understanding, the basis is because we already did it once, we think that's right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Mark?
Back in 2020, that's when the state law changed, allowing it. The city council did change our setback from 75 to 50 feet. So it's a unilateral change.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Any other questions from commission members for staff at this time? Yes, Kevin.
Well, so I just want to clarify a couple of things. So I was just a little confused because all we're talking about, we say a number of times, is lot 2, right? However, what we're approving about lot 2 has serious impact on lot 1, right? But we're not discussing lot 1. And we're not discussing any of the other lots. Is that correct?
I'd say we're not approving any changes on lot besides a lot two. But we could
Okay.
discuss issues that are relevant.
Right, and so like, for example, approving lot two, and then we decide we don't like the location of the drainage and the grading on lot one, what happens?
They might have to come back in for another GDP amendment because what they just got approved isn't feasible. It's kind of at their own risk.
Well, I note in part of the presentation that you guys, I mean, in part of the agenda packet, you guys identified that, this was staff writing, that you want to see a comprehensive GDP that includes all the lots, right? That we're not going to go through this again, was kind of how I read it. Is that accurate?
I don't recall that specifically.
Okay, I'll find it.
Submitting a new GDP with all changes effective whenever they're approved. It certainly wouldn't be a bad thing.
While I find that, I'll ask another question. We're not talking about lot one, but inside this, we approve, it seems, for them to construct their lot two phasing, a temporary gravel parking area on lot one for the boat launch. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So are we talking about lot one or not?
Okay.
You wanna
Yeah,
address that?
I guess I would say that the current GDP does have the boat launch located, on lot one. So that would be an item that was previously approved or currently approved with the current
No,
GDP.
no, it's not, because they relocated it.
The launch itself, yes, but the parking lot would be in the same location.
I'm gonna find the staging document. I'm sorry. So I'm looking at the plan. I believe it is agenda packet page 56, maybe? No, not 56. Hold on. It's page 51 of the agenda packet. Okay. It's a drawing that says Harbor Club Phase 3 sequencing plan, right? And in that sequencing plan in red, it identifies the existing temporary boat launch access, and in red, some kind of parking facility. And then next to it, it says a dedicated temporary gravel boat launch parking facility. So what of that exists now and what's new?
Yeah, the area that's shown in red is the temporary, the temporary parking lot.
That's existing.
Well, yes, that's currently there.
Right, so they're relocating it, right?
Correct, to the location that was approved in the current GDP, which would be on lot one.
Okay, thank you. And then I want to just clarify one item because it was in the minutes and I wasn't at the last meeting but it's relevant here. These homes will be, how will they be served with water and sewer?
They would be extending the public water main on the two new roadways, which names escape me. And the sanitary sewer would be a private sewer system similar to the phase one and phase two. that feeds into a lift station that then pumps into the city's sewer system. So they're hooked up to public sewer and water via a private lift station.
Okay, great. I'm gonna look at that other thing while other people have questions. Thank you, Ryan.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Any other questions?
So, yes, I do. With the private lift station, who's maintaining that?
That would be the homeowners association for the Harbor Club, whatever that is, the Harbor Club.
Homeowner Association. So if there's any sort of failure whatsoever, it's on the property owner to handle any catastrophic events.
With the city utility as a backup, yes.
Okay.
Do you want to define that last statement?
The city has through the developers agreement, and I believe the condo association bylaws, the city utility has the ability, if the condo association doesn't maintain it, if it fails, the utility can go in and say the pumps failed on it and it starts overflowing and running into lake, the city utility can go in, do the repairs and invoice them for the costs. It's a belts and suspenders.
That's my concern. I want to make sure that the lake stays healthy, and I think we all do.
Any other questions for staff this time? Otherwise, I will open up to the petitioners to share any thoughts beyond what's been submitted in our packet.
If you don't mind, if I could coordinate with Andy here, she's has the slide presentation. I'll try not to be too redundant. My name is Rick Zirk. I'm here on behalf of Fairwind. With me is Brian Pollard for Fairwind, Aaron Cook from our Pinnacle Engineering, our design engineer, and Dave Sakaris from the resort. Well, again, as we're looking to do here this evening is seek your approval and recommendation for an approval of a GDP amendment for our, what we call phase 3, which is lot 2. As Jackie said, we're taking 40 total dwelling units and reducing it down to 23, or about a 43% reduction in the total density of the project. This first slide, a little redundant, but we have them all queued up here, so I'll run through them quickly. Is the overall GDP area for the resort, for everything from North Shore Drive all the way to our farther eastmost boundary. Do you want to take the next one? Jack and I didn't get a chance for rehearsal, so we're kind of fighting our way through this one right now. The next slide is part of the presentation is your zoning map showing we all are all in the PD zoning district. All the way to the right, you'll see a little blue box. That's essentially a rough outline of the area that we're talking about as it relates to the whole overall project. The next slide is the current land use. Lot 1 is the white area, including the boat launch. 2 is the duplex area. 3 is the area for the clubhouse and shared amenities with the resort. And then to the left, the blue area, we did that as 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. That was only done as 2 phases, honestly, because we had the issue with the Delavan Lake Sanitary District and where their lift station was and how to move that onto their property or how to share property so that you can resolve that plat issue. So basically the blue area is 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2, which comprise 61 single family lots, 36 of which have already sold and are under construction. So that's the current land phase. The next picture is just sort of our marketing picture, but it kind of shows exactly outlined in blue where the duplex area and how that relates to the balance of the project. The next slide is a current GDP that's been approved for this area. And again, you'll see the duplex area on lot 2. You can see the proximity of those homes relative to the pack line. And if you were to look at the property and grade the property, Aaron can speak to this better than I can in a few minutes, but there is no real environmental corridor if you did it through arbitrary or through an analysis based on inspection. This area is improved right up to the shore. And if you look at our phase 1, the setbacks against that PEC and the impact into the 50-foot PEC, we're not looking to do anything substantially different in phase 3 or our phase 3 lot 2 than we did at phase 1 and 2, which are on lot 4. We're looking to basically pick up that same resort concept, which as Jackie touched on, are single family homes with a fee simple ownership, but you own essentially the land underneath your home. The boxes are a little smaller here because, in all honesty, when we started phase one, we weren't sure what the market was, the demand was going to generate as far as a home. We know exactly what people want now. We're building, like I said, we sold 36 homes already. So we made the boxes now fit exactly where the home footprint is. So if you bought a house, you own the dirt under your house. Everything else in this community is maintained by the resort. Under our management company at this point, they take their snow removal for folks. Because most of these, quite honestly, I don't know that I have anybody, maybe one person who's gonna live here. Every one of these homes is a second home, people are gonna use for the summer. So to make sure they maintain, the maintenance is consistent and they always look the same and always look presentable. Where we don't have somebody who's not coming up for a month and the house gets, grass mowing's out of control. The resort takes care of all the grass cutting, snow removal from the driveways, from any part, walks up to your houses are all taken care of by the resort. And that cost is built into the HOA fee. So this really is, you can't lose focus on the fact that this really is a resort environment more than it is a traditional single family home neighborhood. The next slide is our proposed, these look a lot better on my laptop when I can see them. This next one is the proposed GDP, which shows the exact same phase one, phase two, lot 4, or lot 3 and lot 1, just with the overlay of the single family homes on there. The next phase I was going to touch on is this looked a lot better on my laptop, is the engineering plan, which touched about earlier. The site has an existing lift station. The lift station serves lots 1 and 2. All the collection system for sanitary sewer within our development, and which will also include the marina building, is drains to a lift station. The collection system and the lift station are privately owned by the HOA. The force main's private, which goes up to and connects to a manhole near the airport. And at that point, the sewer system is a public system and goes to your sanitary treatment plant here. So it'll be owned and maintained by the HOA. Those costs again are built into the HOA budget. So everybody's paying a monthly fee to maintain that. We have worked with Metropolitan Industries who design, build, and will maintain the structure for us. Certainly nobody in our group is claimed to be a qualified person to maintain a lift station, nor do any of us want to. So we have a consulting company takes care of that on routine maintenance and a failure or a problem area, they will come and solve it. Any of us here with our cell phones can look at the lift station, change the settings on the lift station. So it's monitored remotely through digital systems, through a cellular system, so they can operate and maintain the facility remotely. So it is monitored constantly. And again, that is ultimately the responsibility of the homeowners association as well as the storm sewer collection system. And the public water system, which will serve these homes, is the main city operated system. It extends water from phase 1 through to this phase 3, and it does provide for an extension out to the northeast, I guess you would call it, for future expansion, should the city want to expand it farther north or east or loop it in with something else. The other next slide is at the fire department's request. There's a whole series of these analysis in the packet. This is a large vehicle, city bus, fire engine, whatever, but we ran an analysis on every turning movement. These are this outlot area is the most acute turning, so I provided that one to show that even in the most acute situation, the fire department trucks will be able to maneuver through the streets without getting hung up or having to back out. So that's one thing. So you're in.
Real quick, what size fire trucks did you factor in?
I'll let Aaron maybe explain
Wait,
that.
I cannot remember the dimensions on it, but it's the same one that we've used previously throughout the project.
I'm asking because we're getting a new fire truck.
Okay,
It is large.
Yeah, we've ran these, but we haven't heard that any blowback from the fire department yet that they didn't feel it was appropriate.
yeah. And if we had the specifications, we could, just as easily. So it's a lot of times we use buses because buses are actually fairly similar to the fire trucks in terms of the wheelbase and turning, so.
Okay.
The next slide is what was touched about before in red, and I provide this simply because in the Mark had asked a question about sequencing of getting, the existing stuff that's located on, and I got Dave here, so I gotta be careful on how I say this. But to assume that the parking of vehicles and parking of trailers and everything is limited to that little red area, I bet it would be a bit of a stretch. I think stuff's scattered out a lot over there. That red area is not a striped parking area. It's basically the outline of the area that the resort has been using for vehicles. Part of our challenge this year is getting this done before April, or excuse me, August, I believe, of next year, when the existing or the temporary access to the launch has to go away. You can see I put this on there for reference. What we have to do is we have to limit the resort to using lot one. Right now, they've got stuff, they probably can back me up, the stuff's kind of scattered out there, and it's, people come in that way, they basically park stuff scattered in that area and lot one. We need to consolidate them back to lot one, keep their parking on lot one. So what we tried to explain to the staff in this exhibit was vehicles are now entering the property through the access point on 50. They will continue to do that, but they will, once we start, we will have that gravel road will come in. They'll make a left-hand turn on what will be our future road extension to lot one. Then we can do all the grading on our site. This summer and fall. Over the winter, we'd like to get the water and sewer mains in, and then early next spring, pave this area. Then once the area is paved, there'll no longer have to be a connection to Route 50, so we can get rid of that Route 50 access. So everybody accessing the boats will come through our signalized intersection, down that launch road, along the parallel to 50, and then into the parking area. Now, as said before, the resort has some bigger plans for parking and more formal use of that lot one, and they'll have to come back with a PIP plan for that area, as well as a PIP for the marina area, which is, I think, are both in process right now. I know the marinas because I've seen some elevations on it, so I know both of those are in place. So I would expect you'll see a PIP submittal from them on both of those. What else did I have here? The next slide is our landscape plan. There are a few things, Jackie had said earlier, there's requests to move the trees along Route 50 right away. Those on this plan have been removed. I don't know if Jackie, if you got that plan, but the trees were removed. As she said, one of the main concerns we have here is protecting the view sheds. People are moving here because they love the lake. They want to see the lake, and we don't want to put a lot of big trees up there. We're going to grow and block the views of the lake over time. So we've really moved the trees to the north side of the property. And you also see we have a little island there we've created between the launch road and our first north street there. The purpose of that landscape island is to provide some privacy and soften the impact of trailers going back and forth to the launch on that main road. So folks can go in there and have a little privacy. That'll be landscaped, as you see, trees. During the PIP process, we're hopeful that we can maybe build a little berming into there. Again, the goal is they have all the boat traffic going on the launch road of parallel to 50, but to let these people move into their little private areas for their homes and have some buffering of that. Two different uses, the more commercial boat launch and the residential use. The plan also includes, if you towards the south, 2 pathways. We had the second one, staff's request to between the road and the walking path along the shore at the resort, and that'll allow folks in this portion of lot of the subdivision to connect to the walking paths, which are connecting to the marinas, the resort, phase 1. So everybody's interconnected through walking paths, so they can get to all the amenities, the boat launch, the beach, the resort. And so we've included those. The next couple slides are just slides from our last presentation. Those are traditionally what we are building in the fronts of each home for landscaping. Each homeowner will be able to pick the landscape. There's another slide too, Andy, that there's different landscaping packages. There's 5 different packages. So each owner of a home can choose the landscape style and design they have. And that allows each homeowner to, again, customize their home, but again, within the 5 packs that we have. And then obviously once folks move in, they can do customization of what they want through, as long as it goes through the architectural review committee. That's another thing in this community. Everything that's done outside the home has to go through an architectural review committee so that we make sure everything that's done is consistent with the theme of the neighborhood. We don't have people putting things up that would block other people's views or wouldn't look unsightly. So we actually have a committee. I got a few things right here I want to just touch on the memo. Because some of them we think are, we obviously we just couldn't do, they're not part of our original development agreement or conflict with our development agreement, and others which I think are done. The first one, and Aaron's probably gonna pop up and help me with the big words and the things that are more technical in nature, but the floodplain and lot setback, it says that they're looking for something in writing from the DNR. I believe that's done. Aaron had provided a email to the DNR talking about the setbacks and the base flood elevation, that type of stuff. And that email was sent back. The DNR responded to us saying that Aaron's assessment or understanding of those impacts was correct. And I believe staff does have that already. So I would hope that's not something that stumbles up at this point. Then the one thing that we want to make clear is that there was a section, as the gentleman said, that there was a recommendation that the applicant provide GDP for the entire property and review and approval before any additional development. So I'm assuming that means before anybody comes back with phase one or lot one or phase four. I just want to make sure that's not a perceived obligation of us at this point, that we'd have to fall back and do a GDP, because we believe we're done. But if that was something they want to see going forward, I get it, but I don't know how, because it does say somewhere else in here, and I'll get to it, that it applies to lot one, but we're not here for anything on lot one this evening. The next thing further down in there two, again, restates the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources for grading other activity in the shoreline. I believe we're done with that. Written approval from Lake Lawn Resort for our temporary grading, those types of things was required. That is at the city. We provided that to the city as well at this point. So that hopefully is done. The plantings on Highway 50 are not permitted, shall be removed. They are removed in the last plan we gave you. They are taken off. Number 9, the primary environmental corridor. I would just get myself in trouble if I speak too much of this. So if you don't mind, I'd like to have Aaron kind of explain where we were, how we are, and how we believe we're compliant with the sewer pack original letter. So Aaron, if you can
Want me to do that now?
make me look good here.
All right. Can I stand here? Is that okay?
That's fine.
All right. Aaron Cook with Pinnacle Engineering Group. We're the site civil engineer for this. Heard a couple different things. So maybe just let me a little clarity here. So we talked about the DNR a little bit. DNR only deals with floodplain. You do not deal with the environmental corridor. So we are not looking to go back to DNR to talk about environmental corridor. They don't care. They won't talk about that. The environmental corridor is regulated by sewer pack. So we have kind of two separate issues here. The comment that we heard from staff was, hey, we're really close to the floodplain. The floodplain is generally contained within the dock wall along the lake. There's a couple little spots where it juts up a little bit, but do we have any concern from the DNR about grading this area or grading area within the 2 vertical feet of the floodplain? So the DNR regulates only to the floodplain line. They don't regulate anything higher or outside the floodplain line. And so what I did is I was able to jump on a email chain with Andrea Stern at the DNR, and she confirmed that. We sent that back to staff. So I believe that's a closed issue. There's no more need to talk anymore with the DNR about the floodplain. And there's really no setbacks to that. It's the floodplain is where it is. If you're outside it, you're outside of it. If you're, that could be 1 foot, 10 feet. It doesn't matter. So, so I think we've cleared that hurdle. The other one is the sewer pack, and this goes back, quite a ways to kind of the beginning of the project that we're working at here. So sewer pack's a regional planning commission, right, that regulates these environmental corridors. When we first looked at the environmental corridors along this section of the property, we did an actual delineation and actually kind of went up into the wooded area where the marina is, but it wasn't contiguous along the lake. And that's because there's no environmental features along the lake. In some places there are. We've got some woods and we've got, some wetland areas. But there's a lot of areas, like Rick said, it's just fully developed right up to that lake edge. Sewer pack said, we'd really like to have a 75-foot band of corridor along the lake, even though the delineation, what's out there doesn't actually support that. We would like to see that. It's just something, it's a goal of theirs. And so we said, well, okay, can we work on this? Because we'd kind of like to develop where that Marina Clubhouse parcel is. And, you know, with that being quarter, that's going to be a little more challenge for us. We'd also like to get, you know, the boat launch parking lot over in the wooded area, which is definitely in the corridor. So we went back and forth with Sewer Pack a number of times, and they agreed that the wooded area where the marina is to be, the clubhouse, was pretty marginal. And they said, yeah, you know, we could probably let that go. That's not something that we're really super interested in protecting. So we came up with an agreement to say, okay, we'll give you 75 feet along the lake. We'll reduce the corridor from where the marina parcel is. And then we had shown a larger parking lot, which you could see on some of the original GDP plans for that boat launch parking. The last minute Sewer Pack said, we know that this is generally allowed, right? So Sewer Pack understands that sometimes you can't protect it perfectly, right? So they allow a little bit of disturbance into the corridor. And the general rule of thumb is 10%. And so we had prepared an exhibit that showed we were under the 10%, even with the double bay of parking in the boat launch parking. At the last minute, they said, you know, that 10% is really supposed to be fringe. It's really supposed to be, we'll give you 10%, but it should just be kind of on the edges, and you're really pushing into the corridor there a lot. So we'd like you to remove some of that parking, even though you're under the 10%. And so we said, okay, you know, fine, we understand that. And so we prepared, actually, we didn't even prepare a plan. Just verbally, we talked to them and said, hey, we'll remove that. We're down to now like 5% disturbance in the corridor. And they approved that. And their approval, because they're not actually a regulating authority, right? They don't issue permits, right? They issue what is a 208 letter, which is a letter that we need to go get our sanitary sewer extension. So even though they're not regulatory, they kind of get their claws in you a little bit. And, you know, because if you don't get a letter, well, then you don't get a sewer permit, right? So, but that's how we came to agreement to say, okay, this is what we're going to do with the corridor. And we did get that 208 letter, which affirms everything like that we've talked about. As part of that, we did do a disturbance plan that showed here is the disturbance that's along the lake shore. There was some in phase 1 and 2, there's some in phase 3, and then some for the boat parking. So when we talk disturbance, and sometimes it gets a little confusing, what Sewer Pack is concerned about is disturbance is, what are you disturbing in terms of the environmental features that are out there, and what kind of buildings or hard surface are you putting in there? That's what they consider an encroachment. So when we say land disturbance, right, we might be grading, right, but that's not the same disturbance they're looking for. So in this case, it's kind of a unique case, right, because we have an area where it's just mowed lawn that they said, hey, this is corridor, we're going to claim this is corridor as part of our negotiations. But if we regrade that, we're not actually disturbing a natural resource. There's no woods, there's no wetlands, there's no floodplain, there's no steep slopes. There's nothing there that they're looking to preserve or protect. So that is generally considered not an encroachment or not disturbance. So our disturbance area, when we redid the map to show, hey, this is what the single families now look like, it's very, very similar. But it only focuses on where are we impacting the woods, which is more on the east end where the parking lot is, and then where does our building encroach into that 75-foot zone that they had asked for along the lake. And I believe when I look at the exhibit that was originally approved and what we have now, they're near identical. They're all both right around that 5%. So I believe that we're good with Sewer Pack. I would love to go back to Sewer Pack just to make everyone here feel happy about it. The problem we have with Sewer Pack right now is they are so far behind on stuff. I am bucking them daily on other permits and other approval letters. And I can tell you they are 4 to 6 months behind. And if I went back to them to ask for affirmation on this, We just don't have 4 to 6 months to wait for them to review this and say, yes, you're good.
I think the big question though, in this whole thing is what we're proposing to do today, if I'm correct, doesn't impact any environmental features more than phase three area or lot 2 did prior. So there's nothing that's changing, and the slope we're putting in the property is not considered a degrading component.
The slope actually strengthens the corridor. So corridors get points based on woods, wetlands, floodplains, steep slopes, riparian things. There's a number of things. It's actually really flat. Once we grade that up, that will actually count as a steep slope. And so they use kind of a number point scale on this. It'll actually strengthen their claim as a corridor for that area. So not that they care, they have it, right? We've granted it to them, but it actually physically strengthens the, you know, the characteristics of the corridor.
So more than I could have said, but if we can move on, the last couple things then is number 10, the property owners agree that a minimum specified number of buildings, I don't know if this is a carryover or not, but the marina building will be made available for short-term rentals. What seems to be asked there is flags in sort of the face of our development agreement and our CCR. At the beginning, if you remember, we in most of our developments, if we were to build this anywhere else, would be very cautious of short-term rentals, only from the perspective, we spend a lot of money on clubhouses and amenities. And if you have people coming in and out randomly renting short-term rentals, you get big parties at your clubhouses and things just get destroyed or ruined, and you don't have any real, it's really hard to go back. So what we agreed to was, in the event in this property that any short-term rentals would be provided, the whole, people could choose to do that, but it had to be through the resort, if you remember. The resort was going to manage that process. So what happens now is folks that come in and they deal with Dave, they go to his office and they have a rental program, just like they do for the condos in the resort. All the resort owners in the condos have a way to put your units into the rental program if they choose. That same program is offered to our homeowners, and they choose to do that. The challenge we have with putting in that minimum number, well, these are in people's individual homes. If I sold either one of you a home, it'd be hard for me to come back and say, you have to be in the program and you don't. And so we've left it as anybody who buys these homes, and again, they are all second, they are, for the most part, second homes. People are looking to offset some of their costs by putting them into the rental program. And I think Dave's had a number of folks that have called him. Pardon?
Is it just a handful? Yeah.
So the folks are doing that, that want to do that. Just would be difficult to us because it's not specified in here to include a minimum number of people. Because that's how we force a homeowner to put his home into the rental program. It'd be different if we owned them or if the resort owned them. They'd be in there because we don't want to make that money, but individual homeowners make that choice for themselves. We can't tell them what to do. And quite honestly, our CCRs don't say that. And we sold a number of lots, 36 homes already, and those people are living with the rules we have. But again, they are going to the resort and signing in that way. So that was some.
Yeah, if I could just add, so this language is a carryover from the previous approval. My intention was whatever your development agreement states is what you should, what should apply here.
Okay, good. I'm just gonna read it that way, so that was.
Well, yeah, but I think this condition is currently in your current approval, so that's something you should probably straighten out.
Okay.
I don't believe it's in our developers agreement though. So, I guess our point would be whatever our developer agreement we'll live by. It just, and maybe 4 years ago that was part of it. And then when we got to the PIP, we said, hey, we can do it, but it can't be that. That's the only thing I can assume, because we would have never, said, hey, there's gotta be a minimum, because we can't control that.
Yeah, and then one thing that Brian touched on so important, we're not looking here today to come say, we want to renegotiate our program with you. We have a development agreement we're willing to live by. We're not asking to change the CCRs other than, we're looking to take an area that was duplexes or twin units, pop that off the plan and put in 43% less twin units, but put it in as single family homes. It's really the extent. We're not looking to change the rules on anything else we're doing. We just have learned from the market that there's significantly better return for all of us with the single family homes. And I can touch on that one last second here, but the other thing that was was probably clear, but I didn't understand it. The city shall retain the right to inspect subject property, including within buildings annually to ensure full compliance with building code, zoning code, GDP and PIP, and other governmental relations. Inspections for compliance with the fire code shall occur twice. I'm assuming this is for the clubhouse or something. We would be doing that in individual homes.
It's for the
Yeah.
commercial.
Okay, because it was in here. We just want to make sure that, you know, we don't have somebody knocking on somebody's front door saying, we're here to do your fire inspection. So that's really the only memo things we had in. Again, we're asking for this because of the change in market rate. It's no challenge. So we think at the end of the day, the taxing, knowing the difference between what we could probably sell a villa for and a single family home, there will be more tax proceeds coming off the single family homes than there would have been even for 23 single family homes will generate more money in tax revenue, will generate more money to pay back the TID receipts faster than 40 villas would. It's just a fact. It's the market has been pretty darn strong for single family homes on the lake. And the other thing it does is speeds up this project completion. We'll definitely sell through 23 single family homes much faster than we'll sell through 40 shared unit villas. Again, what we're asking for is your recommendation to approve the GDP to swap us from duplexes to single family homes. And if anybody has any questions, brought everybody I could to help answer them tonight. And sorry it took so long, but I want to make sure we touch those things that were popped up in our mind.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners for the petitioners?
Just one. With removing a lot of the trees along the lakefront, I understand, the goal is to have a nice view. But trees help provide erosion control.
You know, we're not looking to remove trees. When I said remove them, we removed them from the plan. We had originally showed trees we were gonna put on the plan. And we didn't add the trees we were going to add.
I understand.
Okay.
But by putting new trees on there, they help improve the erosion control. So I'm wondering, do you have adequate erosion control in place? Preserve lakefront.
Well, everything will be turf grass and planted in our, I hate to use the word retention, but the stormwater treatment ponds are all natural. The areas behind the homes, can we go back to phase one? This is what we couldn't pull off earlier, so we're gonna have to struggle through this. Go to back, maybe that color marking one.
To kind of answer your question right now, we actually have retention ponds in there. Before, they had nothing there. So whenever there was a storm or whatever, you know, you had a boat sitting there, you had a trailer sitting there, you had a truck sitting there, it all just went right into the lake. Now we got retention ponds that retain the water, it settles out before it gets, you know, dispersed away from there. So,
And looking at this plan right here is probably easiest. You see in between the two long cul-de-sacs in phase one and two, those darker green areas are all bio basins where the water collects the contaminants and the silt and any sedimentation settles out, and then it works its way into ultimately the lake. So those dark green basins you see scattered through the community are bioretention. That's the proper word there, a bioretention basin that's intended to clarify the water so that it releases to the water, to the lake, cleaner than it normally would. And a lot of that area behind the houses will be natural vegetation and won't be turf grass, fertilized turf grass as it has been. So we think ultimately, part of our engineering plan at the very beginning was to trade off, if you will, retention for improvement of water quality that will hit the lake. Is that fair, Aaron? Mm-hmm. So the goal of this should be to, once you remove what was there before, put this in place with those enhancements, we should have better water hitting the lake than they did before we showed up.
Yeah, and those prairie plants, a lot of those are very deep rooted, so they would actually do as good, if not better, than the trees. Some of those have like, yeah.
Well, a question I probably should know the answer to, but I don't. You brought up this short-term rental on the proposed addition that's being proposed.
Right.
Yeah, do you also have short-term rental on the properties that are currently developed?
Yes, we have, that's all in our development agreement and our CCR. So that's what I'm saying. The phases 1 and 2, we have maybe a dozen families or a dozen closings to date. And those folks are been reaching out today because everything on the property will be part of the same short-term rental program through the resort.
This question would then, for me, go back to staff, and it addresses room tax issue. How do we?
I can answer it.
I'm wondering how the city knows what's happening.
Every short-term rental that's gonna be in this area that's under contract will be listed with the city as well. And that room tax will be collected by the management company at Lake Lawn and submitted to the city with their quarterly, room tax payments. So it's coming from one entity for all those rather than individual homeowners.
So
Just like your.
just to,
Yeah, it's like the condos.
just an extra clarification so that everybody's aware, we did recently pass an ordinance to the city that required that short-term rentals are subject to inspection within the city. So make sure that the people that are doing that understand that, because that is a provision that we have in order to make sure that that's not being taken advantage of from the city standpoint.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
I guess got a question, when you say inspection, what does that mean? Does that mean you
It means
can't
that
just,
the language that's in place,
you
that,
can't post it for rent without meeting some certain regulations?
that means that our officials have the ability to come and say, we're coming to do an inspection to make sure that everything is to code and everything like that.
Okay,
It's no different than hotel rooms.
all right, well,
Yeah.
Yeah, all we care about is that, if somebody wants to put their home in the short-term rental program, and that's a hook, if you will, to the program that Dave takes care of, that's their individual question. We just were concerned that if you bought a home, and
We
you didn't
understand.
put in the program, that somebody not gonna do it.
Yeah.
We understand.
okay.
Yeah,
that's
we're
fair.
fine with whatever the rules are for
Yeah.
short-term rentals, we just push that off on Dave.
How does that new ordinance speak to when the property is not in short-term rental, when it's a private residence?
It doesn't. Because it's a private residence.
And the ordinance speaks to that, so that the guy sitting in his house doesn't have to answer the knock on the door.
Correct.
That's what they're trying to avoid.
Yeah, exactly. There
Any other?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, there clearly could be times people are signing a 1 year, 18-month agreement. They might be in the rental program, maybe they sell the home, then the next person is not in the rental program. So it could go in and out of the rental program, and we would work with the city to get those proper inspections.
But we would know that information because it's
Exactly.
coming back from the state. And we would have all of the mechanisms in place to collect and track that.
Any other questions from Kevin?
Clarify, because I think I heard, pertaining to the list of conditions on page 22, where we said applicant shall secure approval in writing by the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources for the grading and other activities shown within the shoreland setback. We didn't ask for, the applicant said they have that approval in writing and it should have been provided to the staff already. Is that accurate?
Yeah. We will verify that. I believe we do have that.
You think we do?
Yes.
Okay. And then my second question, and this clarifies the paragraph that I was trying to find, is also on page 22. And it writes, staff notes that this GDP amendment approves only items shown on the GDP site plan and listed in the components of the GDP amendment section above. Any further development plans would need to be brought forward for city approval through another GDP amendment and subsequent PIP. And this is what I asked Jackie about previously. It says, staff further recommends that the applicant provide GDP for the entire property for city review and approval before any additional development involving new buildings, additions, expansions, or enlargements is approved by the city. So excuse me, the applicant referenced that section also. So are we asking after we do whatever we're talking about doing here for lot 2/phase 3, that we're going to look at the GDP for the entire property for city review and approval again before we do anything else.
So that was not my intention when writing that, and I apologize if that was a little confusing. My
Well,
intention
it
was,
was pretty clearly written, Jackie.
I don't intend to fully relitigate the entire GDP approval for the whole, all 4 lots. That's not what I was intending.
So what do we expect the next step is then?
So if the GDP amendment is approved this evening, they would need a PIP for lot 2. And then staff needs to internally coordinate and ensure that we're all on the same page about the improvements to lot 1. And then the applicant would need to submit either a GDP or PIP amendment for the improvements on lot 1, as we're not approving those this evening. And 3, thank you.
And then my third question, I appreciated the thorough discussion of the primary environmental corridor issue. And if I heard it correctly, I think I heard we're not going to go back and ask Sewer Pack again because they're too far behind. But do we actually need anything from Sewer Pack at this point because you said any of your waste management and water management activities to get your permits, you have to have their kind of endorsement. Do we actually need anything from Sewer Pack right now?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Any other questions from commission members for petitioners? If not, are there any other citizens who wish to speak at this time, either for or against this issue? Seeing and hearing none, then I would close the public hearing and move on to item number 5.2, which is consider a planned infill development amendment to the official zoning map for a step 3 general development plan GDP for a portion of the Harbor Club at Lake Lawn subdivision at 2800 East Geneva Street, lots 28 through 47, and outlots 5, 6, and 7 to allow for 23 detached single-family homes instead of 40 attached 2-family units in lot 2 previously approved as part of the Harbor Club residential development applicant GJMDLL Properties LLC, owner and Fairwind Ltd developer. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to recommend the common council approval of the proposed GDP, including the findings and conditions as listed in the report.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I just would simply say that it's just reiterating what you had shared, which I think, again, you've come in previous meetings before us to kind of get a general concept of what we like with going from single, duplex styles to single families. And I think the fact that that is better serving of our community overall. And I'd like to see a little less density in that area and keeping the beauty of that area. So I appreciate going back a little bit to the drawing board and seeing how that might fit. So any other discussion?
Yes. I would like to add that I'm very happy that you brought everybody, the engineer, everybody here. I was following quite clearly. You were able to answer all of our questions, and I'm very happy that you had the materials ready to go. So thank you for that.
We appreciate that thing.
I agree.
Seeing and hearing no further discussion, there has been a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you again. We'll move on to item number 6, under business 6.1, is consider a request to amend the eastern portion of the Harbor Club at Lake Lawn subdivision plat, or plan to allow for 23 single-family home sites. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to recommend the amended 23 lot preliminary plat request for the Harbor Club at Lake Lawn, subject to sanitary sewer and water utilities and stormwater runoff control and filtration.
There's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second, any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 Opposed, same sign, motion passes. Item 6.2 is consider a single lot land revision request by certified survey map, CSM, to continue the 2 parcels north of 965 Racine Street.
Hi there. Kristen's here because she's so into this project. This has been before the Plan Commission previously. This is the same parcel that the city purchased, or a portion of that 965 Racine Street. This was actually the legal document that would combine the 2 tax parcels.
Any questions? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion. There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second, any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passes. Item 6.3 is a building permit ready residential developments listing.
Just information, this had previously been an item that the Plan Commission had looked at. Again, there is, if T would stop building so many houses every year, but at the rate he's going, you're gonna be running out of lots that are ready for building permits. So unless somebody comes in with a subdivision, there's that light at the end of the tunnel might be a train.
Thanks for the update.
May also give us a chance to catch our breath.
Oh, got it, sorry.
So I got a couple of questions. What was the actual number of single-family permits issued in 23?
T's thinking it's between 65 and 70.
So if 2024 equals anywhere near the number of single-family building permits issued in 2023, we will have not utilized all these lots by year end. Because there's 127 of them plus 23 more, that's 150, right?
Correct, but there's a couple of those on that list that, for various legal reasons, no one's gonna end up purchasing them, so, but.
So the other question I had is, what is the total number of approved and under construction multi units that will be put into the rental pool in 2024?
So you've got the Falcon Ridge is 154.
Right.
We got 4 units.
Which will be available maybe in 25.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And then when I read this, just if I could have a second, Ryan, I asked Mark a series of questions and Jackie a series of questions about other planned neighborhood and other areas in the city that have been identified across time for potential subdivisions. Because we've gone through this a few times during the development of the comprehensive plan. And I'm not going to go through the whole list right now, but basically there's another 1,000 single family lots that are within the city limits, zoned either as new planned neighborhoods or as 4 future subdivisions. And so I'm very sensitive to Mark's point. We spend a lot of time talking to manufacturers about expanding into the city of Delavan. I think it would be worth our time to potentially go back and talk to some of these folks who have proposed developments previously to increase the availability of potential single-family homes.
Thanks, Kevin.
And then I have one last thing. When does our extraterritorial agreement with the town of Delavan end?
I believe that is 2027.
That sounds right.
We should probably take a look at it because the whole point here is without without more development activity inside the existing activity, we're going to have some pressure for single family homes. And at that point, the question becomes, if somebody presents to us another annexation opportunity for the purpose of building subdivisions, we are to some degree under an agreement that we have to consider with the town whether or not we have our full annexation rights. So I think it's something that's worth spending a little bit more time on down the road. And I want to thank Mark and Jackie for their help in my research questions last week. Thanks.
Thanks, Kevin. Any other questions, comments? Otherwise, thank you again for the update on that. Then we have item number 7, which is the building inspector's report.
Yeah, as you can see, staff's spent quite a bit of time with Harbor Club over the last couple weeks, months. Most of that was presented to you tonight. The city has had 5 single-family homes that we've issued permits for, and from talking to a bunch of the builders out there, it sounds like it's gonna be another, in the next few months. It got a little slow with spring break and winter weather, but a lot of them are seeing a lot of movement. And I've been told by a few builders, I think I know of at least 5 more homes that should be coming in the next month. So it looks like it will be a pretty good year with filling up a lot of these vacant lots. Otherwise, if you have a specific question, I can answer that.
Any questions?
Just one. And I'm not sure if this is part of the building inspector's responsibility, but on the way here, I noticed that one of the downtown businesses had a new sign. Did we approve it? The Hemperium?
So that that is a temporary sign.
Doesn't look very temporary, it looks very professionally done.
Yeah, it is it's a banner sign, which was allowed to have that for 120 days, and then it's gotta come down. Yes, he did come and talk to the city, but for the banners, he's under the square footage of what we allow. And he was not required to get a permit for that.
Okay. So the time frame is running 120 days.
Correct.
That's the record store. They were selling satellite. Now they're doing CBD and a bunch of other stuff, and I don't remember coming across anybody's table.
Yeah, and I believe he is gonna wanna be making a permanent sign, because that's in the downtown historical district, and because of how that sign is gonna be, you'll probably see that. It won't be one that I approve on my own.
Thank you.
And just for clarity, it's 25% or less of the overall business itself.
For So our code requires for tobacco products that needs to be less than 25%. That particular business was mainly satellite dish, which I believe is kind of going to the wayside. And I believe now it's gonna be a record store slash hemp store. And I believe that I sent an email out to him. I haven't been in the store recently, but the new sign that he kind of brought that to my attention. He is aware that it's supposed to be less than 25%. And I believe that the record part is gonna be the bigger part. Now, whether our staff needs to step in at some point, but yes, it is supposed to only be less than 25%.
Well, I'm happy that we're paying attention. Thank you.
Any other questions for building inspector? Otherwise, if there's no further business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a motion? Is there a second? Motion and a second. All in favor of adjournment, signify by stating aye.
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 Thanks, everyone. We're adjourned.
Sorry, time got away.